Yeah, what's up? Hello, it's a Triple B Bass Boxing Basement. At least hit the like and everything else. Because this channel, and many other channels are deliberately shadow banned for speaking reality. And I'm mainly a boxing channel, okay? I did a poll, right? And a lot of people liked the red pill stuff and said that I should do more red pill stuff. So this is a red pill style video. And probably now already the AI of Google, YouTube, well, they're the same company, right? Here, the red pill phrase, and will automatically downgrade this video. I don't give a shit, man. I could be doing a lame, bland, vanilla channel unboxing and get tens, hundreds of thousands of views, but that's never going to happen because morality and truth is more important than money. And if you disagree, then you're a wrong'un. Anyway, so today is a very important day, allegedly. Today's the 11th of the 11th. The 11th of November. Remembrance Day in the UK. Now, the reason it is on this date, Remembrance Day. Right, now before I carry on, I want to make it very, very clear here where I stand. Yeah? I am not criticizing people in the forces. I am not criticizing squaddies, people that have been in the army, right? People that have fought in wars. I'm not criticizing them. I believe they were misled, but I'm not criticizing them or their courage. However, I am criticizing the media, the culture, the superior officers, the field marshals, the colonels, the generals, and most importantly, the politicians and the people that write so-called history. These are the people that I'm criticizing. So, I've had family that been in the army. I've had family that still are in the forces. People that risk their lives. So, I'm not attacking people that have been drawn into the forces. And you know what? The forces, for a lot of people, can be attractive, especially working class people. And they're like thinking, well, maybe, there's a lot of poor places. And they're thinking, well, hang on, I go to the army, I get a decent salary, I get my food, I get looked after, I get camaraderie, I have friends, I have excitement. So I completely understand why a lot of people, especially working class people, would want to join the army. But the picture's a lot bigger than that, okay? The picture's a lot bigger than that, right? So where does Remembrance Day is? Look at the date, first of all. If you know, you know. Okay? Now, first of all, okay, if you look around, it makes me sad. It makes my heart feel heavy when I see memorials to poor people that died in the wars, especially World War I and World War II, because they had heavy casualties. And the recent wars. And my heart, every town has got a memorial. And what does it say? To the glorious dead. To the glorious dead. Just think about that usage of language. The glorious dead. So basically, the people that build these things, by the way, are politicians and local governments, and they are saying, you died in glory. This is a subject I'll come back to, but what you think? What really, really upsets me when I see these memorials, my heart feels heavy, and then I see people from there's 5 or 6 people on one memorial from the same family with the same names, and I'm just like, oh man, their family suffered, they suffered, and there's nothing pretty about war, man. Yeah. I've seen people that come out with terrible injuries. Terrible injuries. And obviously they will be fated to some extent with marches, with medals. But hang on a minute. I mean, you've lost your legs, your balls, You've been burnt. What does that little medal on your chest mean? Now, it's a big... Right, Again, I am defending... I want to make it clear. I am defending the squaddies, the forces, the working class people that have been roped into taking risks and being courageous and suffering. But my point is this. For what? There are so many ex-soldiers, you see, especially with World War I, World War II, and they will say, it wasn't worth it, man. I see my friends die. I was seeing a thing about World War I the other day, right? World War I is especially vile because the propaganda machine worked hard and all these young men and people who are 14, 15, 16 lied about their age. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an adventure. Now, obviously, you imagine you're born in a poor town and you're promised adventure and going abroad and excitement. Well, it's appealing. And then they put even more pressure. What did you do in the war? That famous, I think it's Kitchener. That Kitchener poster. What did you do in the war? And they sent females out. Oh, yeah. They sent them out. This was not organic to go around putting white feathers in young men who thought, no, I don't want to fight in the war. To humiliate them and make them fight in the war. Now, World War I was one of the most dreadful wastes of human life. For what? Well, it was a battle of empires. And Remembrance Day, which is today, is, I say celebrated, because it is. They celebrate this on the 11th hour, 11 a.m. of the 11th day of November, the 11th month. Which is because that's when World War I ended, officially, on the Western Front. So, 11 plus 11 plus 11 equals what? 33. What you think? That's fluke? Right? That's a very, very, very powerful and important number. And you see it all the time when you read the papers. And that's when you know you're dealing with a psyop. 33 is a very important number. Okay? So, I saw this terrible program the other day. I find it hard to watch. And there's the World War I soldiers, obviously that generation's all past now. But being recorded telling us about their experiences. Yeah, and there's one guy going, we were told never to stop and help another soldier who was injured. We were told never to help them if they were drowning in mud, because these battlefields were full of mud, water. These young men were running across it with heavy packs, and a lot of them would slip and drown in the shell hole. And they were told, do not help them. Carry on running towards the enemy. Carry on running towards a bunch of machine guns gunning you down. And there's so many, other stories, and they're going, these poor men sitting there with their guts, screaming for their mothers. They executed many mentally ill soldiers who'd been shell-shocked. They shot them. Yeah. Oh, they've apologized now. Well, that's really helpful, isn't it? What was World War I about? It's a battle of empires. Ask anyone today, why did World War I start? And I go, evil Germans. And the ones that maybe slightly have a little bit of alleged historical knowledge will say, Ferdinand got shot. And I said, yeah, but why does that lead to literally millions upon millions of of young men dying in grotesque conditions. Some Serbians shot Archduke Ferdinand and that set off the war. Yeah, why? It's just a big setup, man. Yeah. So that afterwards, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia was an ally of Serbia, so went on their side. Britain and France allied with Russia. Germany entered, and what? So basically, some stupid aristocrat got slotted by a random guy, and it may or may not have been set up, but some random guy, and that's the reason tens of millions of people died in horrible conditions, by flamethrowers, by drowning, by shells ripping their bodies apart. Really? And at the time, you can see all videos, and all these young lads are so excited by it. Why? Because they were manipulated by propaganda, It's not a new thing to manipulate and program people's brains. And by that, I mean people in power, to program people's brains to do whatever they want. And that includes getting ripped to pieces. Yeah. I know a couple of idiots. One of my cousins, he gets wood about all the wars, and he got kids, and I'm like, what? Would you send them there? And he look at me like I'm evil, and I'm like, why not? You're jacking off, watching war films all the time about young kids, mainly poor. Although the officers, right, the young officers were had the highest casualty rate, because, the lieutenants and second lieutenants, because they were the ones leading the charge, and you could see they were officers, and they said go for them first. So, but mainly it's always working class people. Like once you get over, if you're an officer, once you get to a certain position, a certain rank, you don't see action. You sit there looking at maps, moving little pieces around, and ordering your men, they're not your men, ordering a bunch of young men to be slaughtered. And that includes, the Somme. I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's not funny, but it's so ridiculous. The Somme. Some idiot officer, high general said, well, you know what we're going to do? You know what we're going to do? I think the Germans will be expecting us to run towards their lines, firing. So we're going to freak them out. We're going to walk across the land, and no one is allowed to discharge around. I believe they said that. Because what will happen, the Germans will get so intimidated they'll leave their trenches. Well, what happened? They machine gunned and flattened, I think it was something like 60,000 casualties in one day. Just for that, man. And you know what, instead of sitting, and so what they do, it's a ritual, remembrance services. And obviously, it's completely right to feel sad about all these poor people who've given their lives in terrible circumstances. But that's not what it is. They say they were glorious. They gloriously gave their lives for our country. Right? Now, no one has tried to invade Britain since, I think it was 1767. Okay? They're not defending country. What's the Iraq War? The Afghan War? Okay. Truthfully, in 1982, okay, the Falklands were invaded, and that's not mainland Britain. Obviously, and that's a weird condition. The islands, thousands upon thousands of miles away from Britain, were invaded by Argentina. So that's the last. You could say, well, that's fair enough. You were defending those British islands. That's okay, I get that. But what? Bosnia? I want to call it the Balkans War. Afghanistan, Iraq, twice. How were you defending your country? You weren't. And the worst perpetrators are America. No one's tried to invade America. And they've gone to Grenada, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, slaughtered loads of poor people. And that includes their own. And you know what? People get fed by the people. I mean, the people of countries get fed these, I don't know, not these fantasies, but they get programmed and they get told these things. We had to fight back because otherwise Germany would have tried to invade us and kill us in World War II. Germany they'd all force us to talk German. Now, apart from that being utter nonsense, yeah, because Germany never forced any country they invaded to speak their language. But firstly, so what? Huh? So what? And it wouldn't happen to anyone. You know, history is written by the victors, but not just the victors. I'm not talking about normal people. It's talking about the victors who were in charge. And they probably didn't go to war. No, they almost certainly didn't go to war. What, you think the people writing the history books went to war? No. They're the one writing the books. They're the politicians. They're fat, disgusting nonces like Winston Churchill. Right? Winston Churchill, who, by the way, in 1936 said, so way before declaration of war, we must destroy Germany. They're getting too powerful. So that's all it is. It's a power clash. Not only that, but Winston Churchill, the nonce, and yeah, look at it, check it out. Yeah, allegedly he's Britain's biggest hero. He's a nonce. He's a warmonger. There was 8 severe attempts by Germany to broker peace. He refused every single one. There was even negotiations before the war came out. Yeah, but Winston Churchill was determined to go to war. Why? Because his estate was in big financial trouble. It was broke. And big bankers gave him tens, it was 150,000. I don't know what that's worth now. It's probably worth millions to save his estate as long as they followed his orders. There's a book by Smedley D. Butler. It's called War is a Racket. Yeah, he's a retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General, and he discusses about how businesses and individuals profit from conflict. Who profits? Well, arms companies, people who have large companies that profit from, I don't know, investment banking, lending money to big countries, right? Who might benefit by getting trade routes, who might benefit by getting access to oil. Yeah. And Smedley Butler argues that all wars are driven by profits at the expense of the general public and soldiers. And that's why I support the soldiers, and the forces, because unfortunately they've been used as pawns. Yeah. So you got a guy called Churchill who's funded by globalist bankers to go to war. Oh, and by the way, and Germany's portrayed as a bad guy, right? Germany never declared war on France, on Britain, or any other country. It did invade a part of Poland, right? The Danzig area. Why did it invade that part of Poland? Because despite negotiations with the Polish government, right? The Polish government, and I'm not blaming the Poles, by the way, the people, I'm blaming the government. They persecuted and killed ethnic Germans that were in the Danzig area and also other areas of Poland, because the Versailles Treaty deliberately was so anti-German. Why? Because France and the UK, who had big empires, said we have to destroy Germany because they're too powerful. So they stripped every colony that Germany had And he didn't have that many abroad, especially. But he got all these lands that were previously German territories, and they gave them to other powers, mainly Poland, but other powers as well. I think France as well benefited. But these countries were inhabited, these territories were inhabited by ethnic Germans. And then they persecuted them and killed them. So Germany in 1939 or 38, before the Second World War, had tried to come to some kind of diplomatic solution to stop the people in this area being killed. It didn't happen, so they invaded it. Right? But go and look at who declared war. It's all the so-called good guys. The so-called good guys. France, Belgium, whatever. You want Britain, especially Britain. And yeah, France got rolled over, But also ask yourself, why did no one ever invade Switzerland? I wonder why that might be. Why did no one invade Switzerland, even though Switzerland had so much wealth and gold and all kinds of art and banking? I wonder why they didn't invade Switzerland. Well, if you know, you know. Okay? So Churchill declared war on Germany. He was the warmonger. 8 attempts were made to end the war, and 1 attempt previous to the war. Also, Great Britain were the first to bomb civilian targets. They were the first to bomb civilian targets in Germany. It wasn't the other way around. Yes, Germany did eventually bomb London. I think there were about 60,000 casualties there, or deaths, and obviously that's not great, but that's they hold it up. When I say they, the media, the culture, hold it up as a great bit of British strength, pushing against the evil Germans bombing civilians. Well, it was actually just done. The Germans were the first civilians to get attacked. And let's not talk about Dresden, where they firebombed women and children. So the first bombing on civilians, i.e. non-military targets, was done by Britain against Germans. So the Germans reacted against that. But the Germans are the evil ones, and the British are the heroic ones, even though I think 250,000 German civilians, mainly women and children, got firebombed to death in Dresden. So what do you know about that? So, what's the point of this? Well... the other one. General Patton, right? Who was a very important general, one of the most important American officers in the Second World War. After the Second World War, he goes, "We fought on the wrong side. We fought on the wrong side." And what happened? Allegedly, the reason Britain and France justified going to war with Germany was because they invaded a small part of Poland that housed ethnic Germans that were being persecuted and killed. That was because they'd made an agreement. Why was that agreement made? Because the Brits and the French knew that the Germans could be baited into war because they took away all these lands that were German and full of German people. Okay? And Russia in the Second World War. So they invaded Poland. Now, some alleged historians say it was 2 weeks after Germany. They were allies at the time, although it changed, but at the time. And some historians say, no, actually, Russia went first. Regardless, what happened after the war? So the alleged reason the Second World War started was because Britain were protecting Poland, right? Against the evil Germans who were protecting their own people. And so what happened? What happened after the war? Well, Britain handed over Poland to Russia and the CCCP, the Eastern Bloc, the Russian Empire. This massive, the USSR, this huge communist, socialist state, fascist state. They handed it over to them. They didn't seem to give a shit about the Polish. Of course they didn't give a shit about the Polish. They just wanted a reason to destroy Germany and to go to war and to make bankers money. Yeah. It's not only during war that bankers make money by lending money. By bankers, I'm not talking about HSBC. I'm talking about huge global investment banks. They, with a lot of money, they lend money. They lend money to countries at huge interest rates. And then the countries afterwards are broke. And then what happens? The banks move in again. And they lend them more money to rebuild the country. And the bankers are sitting there rubbing their hands and scratching their big noses at how much money they're making. Look at Waterloo and Rothschild family, how they deliberately faked news so they could crash the London stock market and buy up all the stocks and learn to control the UK. Anyway, that's enough, right? That's just a bit of background. But what I'm saying is, I don't know how anybody now who lives in the Western world could get talked into joining the forces, knowing that you're just going to be used for political reasons, for financial reasons, and you'll be used as cannon fodder. And if you're lucky, you'll get a medal. You might lose your balls, you might lose your legs, you might lose your life, but you're glorious. The glorious dead. And I am not looking down upon the courage and the strength of the young men and women too now that took part in these conflicts, but they were misled, and that's why. And there are many books and tracts written about it. I'm surprised they even let them publish it. I recently read All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a look at the German involvement in World War One. It's an incredible book. It's known to be a classic by Remarque. It's by a guy who's actually from a part of Europe that has gone from Germany to France. He also does a follow-up after the First World War, and it's very well written. And he fought in the war, right? So it's fiction, but it's very well written. He fought in World War One and saw the sickness and horrors. And it was essentially considered an anti-war book. It's an essential read. There's been several films on it. One in the 30s, one with John Boy Walton, and then recently one on Netflix. The Netflix does not really follow the book, but it still shows you the absolute horror and how they propagandize. And maybe I'm making up that word. Maybe like an American, I'm calling it word. How they propagandize all these youngsters into thinking it's honorable, beautiful to die for your own country. Yeah. It's not your own country. You're not dying for your own country. You're dying for banks. You're dying for politicians. You're dying for some a field marshal or some general with a huge moustache that's pointy at the end. Yeah? So he can sit and get glory whilst all these poor children basically get massacred. Okay, so watch All Quiet on the Western Front. All the versions are good. They're different, but they're all good. And read the book, because books are always better. So what I'm saying is, the point of what I'm saying is, when it comes to Remembrance Day, they being the media, the politicians, culture, the high-ranked officers are trying to tell you how great it is to die for them. And they will pretend you're dying for your country. Like I said to you, no one's tried to invade Britain since 1767, apart from the Falklands, but that's not part of Great Britain. It's territory that's thousands of miles away. Yeah, no one's tried to invade America. Yeah, and they constantly spin the story. You're fighting for your country. You're fighting for your people. You're fighting for your people. You're fighting for. No, you're not. Unfortunately, you're not. I would tell anyone in the army, not to throw down their weapons, to keep their weapons, but to turn to turn on the evil forces that are manipulating them. Peace in the Middle East.